Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. I hope that you are all well. Welcome back, and if you are new, thanks so much for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. Today I am doing a wrap-up video. I read 12 books altogether in May, which included reading 5 books for the BookTube prize. So I'm actually going to start with those books from the BookTube prize, and I'm going to start with a couple of books that I actually already read in other months, but that I haven't yet talked about. And as usual for my wrap-ups, I'm going to start by reading the first lines. So this one starts like this. There were 4 of us suicide bombers with one mission: to turn the celebration at the Stade de France into global mourning. And this is from Khalil by Yasmina Khadra. This was in the first round of translated fiction in Group G, and I rated this as my highest book of the group, so I am so sad that it is not going into the semifinals. I think that it definitely has a place there. It's definitely worth a read. Khalil is the main character, and we get the story from Khalil's perspective, which is one of the things that I thought was brilliant about this story. Khalil is a suicide bomber, and when the time comes, his bomb vest doesn't go off. Like, can you imagine? So he's left trying to figure out what he's going to do because he doesn't want to be seen as a coward, you know, who couldn't go through with the mission and the plan. So he kind of goes into hiding, visiting family and friends, and this time is really intense, especially the time at his sister's, and it's very clear that she doesn't want him there. And while he spends time with his family and friends, he witnesses their reactions to what has happened. And I thought that this was really well done and very genius in this book. We learn about close friends and family members who were involved or victims of this bombing, and it all hits very close to home for Khalil. And I really thought that this book was well written. This would be for anyone who likes books about heavier subjects. If you like being in the mind of the person who is considered, in this case, to be an anti-hero, and if you like an intense story, then this is definitely for you. For the quarterfinals of the BookTube prize, I read Fiction Group B, and this was more of a difficult round to rank because I actually liked all of the books. I rated them all like 3.5 to 4.5, so it was hard to put them in order. I'm going to talk about the 3 books that didn't go through first. This one I read in April, and it begins, in October, there were yellow trees. And this is from Small Things Like These by Keegan. And this was my lowest rated book at 3.5, which for me is still a really good rating. I like how this one started off. It gave a real sense of place, and this is a really quick read. It's really more of a novella, which was fine because others in this group were much longer and more of a commitment to read. There was also this sense of everything being okay when so many people are struggling in the story. The main character is Bill Furlong, and he is married, and him and his wife have 5 daughters. And one day he goes to the convent, and he sees someone, and he knows that something is wrong, but he doesn't know exactly what's going on. And he has to decide if he is going to do something about this or not. So for me, this was okay. The setting is well done, but it really felt like a piece of a story and not a whole story, and I felt like it could have been so much more. The next book that didn't make it through to the next round begins like this. The sky, broken by the bare oaks and elms of New Prospect, was full of moist promise, a pair of frontal systems grayly colluding to deliver a white Christmas, when Russ Hildebrand made his morning rounds among the homes of bedridden and senile parishioners in his Plymouth Fury wagon. This is from Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen. And I ranked this as my number 2. So this is a story about a family, the Hildebrand family, and it takes place in the early 1970s in New Prospect, Illinois. Russ Hildebrand, he's an associate pastor, and he's married to Marion, and they have 4 kids. And from the very beginning, there are many things going on, starting with the fact that Russ is attracted to Frances Cottrell, who is a parishioner. And then there's also tension between his kids, like between the siblings. And one of the biggest tensions is with a guy named Rick Ambrose, who is the new youth pastor and has kind of taken over like Russ's position. So the story is told in alternating perspectives of the Hildebrand family, beginning with Russ and his wife and children. And I really liked how that was done. It gave me empathy, or at least some understanding of what was going on with each character and how they were, perceiving the events going on around them. So I put this as my number 2 because I connected with these characters differently than I did with some of the other stories. And I liked that there is a bit of a coming of age story, especially with Becky. One of the sons, Perry, is dealing with his drug addiction. I like the connection that Becky has with Clem. And it just gives a well-rounded story of this family. And then Marion's perspectives, too, on their marriage and what she's going through I thought it was very interesting. So now this is the first of a trilogy. So I can see how maybe some people might not like that. Like the story isn't finished, but I kind of like that. I liked knowing that, there was going to be more. And since this is the first time that I've read Jonathan Franzen, it has given me a really good sense of his writing style and ability for storytelling. And I'll definitely read more books by him. And I am interested in reading more in this series. So I would say that this is a good read for anyone who likes stories about families, stories told from different perspectives, stories with themes of family and marriage, coming of age, religion, and spirituality. So the final book that didn't make it through to the semifinals begins. What's 2 + 2? And this is from Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which I ranked as my number 3 choice. So yes, it's true that 2 out of my 3 top ranking books didn't make it into the semifinals. Here's the thing about this book. I do not read a lot of sci-fi, and yet I really enjoyed this book. So the fact that I would enjoy the book as much as I did, that was enough for me to want to see it get through. Plus it was kind of all on its own among the other books in this category. So I was rooting for the underdog, I guess. And I sort of buddy read this with Gemma from Gemma Books. Unfortunately, we didn't chat about this as much as we probably would have normally and as much as we could have, and that's my fault because life was happening at the time. But we both did enjoy it. And for me, and I think for Gemma too, the only thing that stopped me from giving it a 5-star was that it was super sciencey. And I get that there needs to be science in this, it's science fiction, but it was a lot, and so I only gave it 4 stars. I liked the main character, Ryland Grace, who when we first meet him, we obviously don't know anything about him, but he doesn't know who he is either, because he has woken up on a spaceship and has no memory of anything. And as he discovers who he is, we also discover who he is. And I really liked that part. And I liked his backstory. I thought it was very clever. The 2 things that I enjoyed most about this book is the humor. The book did make me laugh out loud quite a few times. And second, I absolutely loved Ryland's relationship with Rocky, who he meets, and they become friends and help each other out, and I just thought that that relationship was, just so special. The ending in this is also kind of sweet, so I was hoping that this would go through. I'm not completely surprised that it didn't. Like I said, it is the underdog, but it's another one that I think is worth a read, especially if you do like sci-fi. And if you like stories with a bit of humor, an interesting friendship, and where the goal is to save the earth and all of humankind. So this means that the next 3 books are the books that made it through to the semifinals. So I'm not going to go into too much details about these because they will be talked about quite a bit. But maybe for the 2 that I didn't vote through, I will tell you why. So I am going to start with the one that begins like this. The moment the metal box speaks her name, Amor knows it's happened. And this is from The Promise by Damon Galgut. Now, I have seen that this book has reviews like all over the place, even from people that I know and love and respect their opinions. It has been rated everything from a 1-star to a 5-star. So for me, I rated this a 4, and I ranked it 4th. The structure of this book is really different, and at first I felt like it was just all over the place, and eventually I kind of settled into it and the stream of consciousness like writing. This is the story of the Swart family, and it takes place in South Africa. The Swart family is quite dysfunctional, and basically a promise has been made to Rachel, or Ma, while she's on her deathbed, that Salome, who is a black maid, will be given Rachel's house. And after Rachel dies, this promise does not get fulfilled, and it's about how the lives of the Swart family changes over time. So there's a lot of deaths. The apartheid and racism play huge roles in this story. Again, I really liked this story, but the reason that I didn't rank it high enough to go through is because it was so like all over the place. But there are some very relevant themes, and this would be a good one for anyone who is wanting to read more about those themes, and a story that takes place in South Africa during apartheid, and again, it is a family story. Next, this book begins somewhere in the Tuscan hills. 2 English spinsters, Evelyn Skinner and a Margaret someone, were eating a late lunch on the terrace of a modest albergo. And this is from Still Life by Sarah Winman. Oh, this book. I was expecting to love this book, and I did like it. I gave it 4 stars as well, and I ranked it 5th, but it could have easily been like a 4 or even a 3. Ranking the books in these spots was really hard, and the main reason that I put Still Life lower than The Promise is because I started this book 4 times before I was finally able to just kind of push through and read it. So there were still times I'm not sure I knew what was going on, and I'd kind of be like, did I miss something? What's happening here? So I liked it, but I did not love it. I did like the settings, London and Florence. I also, for the most part, like once I got into it more, I liked the characters and their friendships. And I think that's probably what won me over in the end. And the fact that it had an Ali Smith vibe, especially with her novel Autumn, which I loved. It has those themes of art and beauty, so I liked that. So I would say that this is a good read for anyone who likes books set during World War II. If you like character-driven novels about friendship, and then I would say if you have a love for art as well. And the final BookTube prize book in this group begins like this. If you were to put a blade through any sphere and divide it into 2 perfect halves, the circumference of the cut side of each half would be a great circle. That is the largest circle that can be drawn on a sphere. And this is from Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, which I did rank as my number 1 book. And I was very happy to see it go through to the semifinals. I know that this book has already received a lot of accolades, but I could see it going through to the end. I love a book with strong female lead, and the main character, Marion Graves, is an aviator, and I thought that was very cool. It had like an Amelia Earhart kind of vibe. This story is in contrast with the more contemporary story of Hadley, who is an actress and is playing the role of Marion in a film. And I really liked that idea, but I do admit that I enjoyed Marion's story more than I enjoyed Hadley's. What I liked most about this book was the writing. I thought that the writing was really, really well done, and that the character development was good too. So we will see how far this book goes. This would be a good book for anyone who, likes strong female characters. It's more of an epic novel or more of an epic story, and if you like books with dual timelines. So those are my BookTube prize books. I am not reading this next round. I had originally signed up for it, and then I guess I received an email saying, something had gone wrong with those, and we were asked to sign up again, but that's when life was happening, and so I missed that email, and I didn't get it until it was too late. So I took that as a sign to just take a break. But I will be following along, and we will see what makes it through to the final round. So that leaves me with 7 more books that I read in May, and the first one on the pile begins like this. Listen, 3 miles deep in the forest just below Arnott's Ridge, and you're in silence so dense, it's like you're wading through it. And this is from The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes, which is a historical fiction novel that I had heard so much about, and I'm really glad that I finally read it. I really liked the premise of this story. It is based on the Packhorse Librarians of Kentucky, and this follows 5 women. The leading 2 women would be Marjorie and Alice, but really all 5 are, great, strong female characters. The 2 things that I loved most about this book were the way that we see women living in a man's world, and they're going against the expectations of their role. And I would say that all 5 women show just the different ways that this was difficult, and then the different ways that it was overcome. So Marjorie, who I loved, was a woman who, never cared what men thought, or that she had to listen to their demands, and others in the group had to break away from the men in their lives, at least in some ways, to some degree, and the women become a support for one another. And then the second thing that I really loved about this book was the importance put on books, the importance of education, and that all people should have access to books. And it was just amazing, although not surprising, to see how books changed people's lives and their way of thinking, and it really gave them a better sense of who they are and what they can accomplish and what they're capable of. So I thought the writing was really good. I have read other Jojo Moyes books, and I'm sure that I will definitely read more. So this is a good read for anyone who enjoys, strong female characters, historical fiction, and stories about friendship, and books about books. So the next book was my book club book in May, and it begins like this. Swarm season always arrived by telephone. And this is from the memoir The Honey Bus by Meredith May. So not too long ago, I think I mentioned that bees seem to be everywhere, and this story is all about bees and what they can teach us. So Meredith May shares her, basically her coming of age story when at a very young age her parents split up and her mother takes Meredith and her brother to live with her grandparents. And the mother is neglectful, and the relationship with her grandparents becomes basically the most stable thing that she has. Her grandmother is not the warmest and most nurturing person, but her grandfather and her have a very special connection, and he is a beekeeper, and he has an old bus in their yard that he makes honey from. So Meredith is fascinated by this, and she learns about the bees from her grandfather, and she's able to translate these lessons to her life, and this is just a very heartwarming story. Both Meredith and her brother, you know, they had to deal with some pretty tough stuff at an early age, and I loved learning about the bees, and I absolutely loved the grandfather. In the book, and I got it from the library, but there are pictures of the grandfather and the bus, which was kind of cool to see. So this is a good story for anyone who likes memoirs, likes stories about bees, coming of age stories, and just likes a feel-good, heartwarming story. The next book begins. On vacation, you can be anyone you want. And this is from People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I had read Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I loved it. This one I liked, but I didn't enjoy it as much. The two main characters in this are Poppy and Alex. They are best friends, despite being very different from each other. And actually, I thought that this relationship and story had a kind of When Harry Met Sally kind of vibe. I liked both characters, and I liked the contrast between them. So every summer they would go on vacation together until something happens. I won't tell you what. And at first, we don't know what that is, but Poppy wants to make things right again with them, so she asks Alex to go on another vacation with her, which he agrees to. And the story is told by going back and forth between previous summer vacations and the current vacation. So you see how their relationship has grown and changed over time, and then you learn, what happened and why they haven't seen each other in a couple of years. So I found this to be a quick read. It was pretty lighthearted, and for me, very predictable, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there were really no surprises along the way. So this would be a good read for anyone who likes romance, friends to lovers tropes, and something light and easy. Okay, next up we have a book that starts like this. Eula books the suite in Clarksville, 2 towns over. And this comes from the short story collection, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Deeshaw Philyaw. And I've heard such good things about this book. And, many of you already know that I am, I try to always be on the lookout for really good collections of short stories. And this collection has 9 stories, and each one focuses on a different Black woman. And I really enjoyed the first 4 or 5 stories, and then my interest started to wane a bit. The themes are fantastic. Religion, faith, sexuality, relationships, community, feminism, infidelity, secrets, and a whole lot more. So I think what would have made these stories even better for me is if I felt like they were connected. These women could have been from the same community, but there was no way of knowing that. Or if there was, I did not pick up on it. And I think that would have made this a stronger collection. However, it is worth a read. It's a very quick read. I think I read it in just a couple of hours. So this would be a good collection for anyone who, wants to read stories about Black characters and explore the lives of Black women in particular. And if you like those themes, then these stories are, great for that as well. So we have a few more to go here. Next, this book begins like this. Noah Logan always knew the day would come when he officially morphed into someone he no longer recognized, and apparently his 31st birthday was going to be it. This is from Crazy Stupid Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams. This is the third book in the Bromance book club, this series. And now some of you know that I don't do well with series. I start to lose interest after, a while. And I think that might be starting to happen with this series. I loved the first book, and like that one, this one has some very clever lines. This book focuses on the relationship between Noah and Alex, or Alexis, who was a prominent character from the last book. And it is another friends to lovers story. And like I said, it was okay. I wasn't as invested in these characters as I was before. I think the premise of the Bromance book club is starting to feel old, and it's becoming unbelievable to me. So there was also a subplot in this one about Alex finding out that she has family she didn't know about. And it was okay, but it didn't blow me away or engage me as much as it probably should have. So I'm not sure if I will continue with the series. I think at this point there's one or two more books that are in the series, so I might read them, but right now they are not a top priority for me. So this book would be good for anyone who enjoys romance, the friends to lovers trope, and definitely, if you have already started reading this series, if you've read the first two books, then you can continue with this one. So a couple more to go here. Next up is a book that begins like this. Jack Torrance thought, officious little prick. And this is from The Shining by Stephen King. My edition of this is a collection of King's first 3 books. And I read The Shining as a group read with AJ from AJ Dunn Reads and Writes, and their killer reads that they do on a monthly basis, which is awesome. So I was brand new to The Shining. I had never seen the movie or read the book, and it actually wasn't as scary to me as I thought it would be. It was more psychological than I thought it would be. This is about Jack Torrance, who is a writer, and he gets a job at the Overlook Hotel. Basically, Jack, his wife, and their 5-year-old son will be the ones to keep this hotel going during the winter, and they will be shut in because of the weather. So this is seen as a fresh start for Jack and an opportunity to get some writing done. And many of you already know that I love when a place becomes a character as part of the story, and the Overlook Hotel definitely becomes a character in a really big way. And the family is warned, about things that have happened in the hotel in the past, and they are also warned to stay out of a specific room. And it's Jack's son Danny that, first of all, I adored him, and to me he was kind of the lead character, at least at the beginning. I wasn't expecting that, but Danny is a unique kid, and from the beginning is aware of things going on in the hotel. So I was never a fan of the wife or mother. I didn't care for her character as much. But there is definitely character development with Jack and how he becomes more isolated and how that begins to affect him and his paranoia. I don't like stories where children are portrayed as evil, and that's not what happens here, but Danny does have to deal with evil things, including what is going on with his father, and he tries to sort that out through other characters in the book too. There's actually quite a bit in this book. I was impressed at how layered it actually was. So thanks again to AJ for hosting this read along. This book would be a good story for any readers who like complex characters, psychological thrillers, a closed room type of story, and obviously any Stephen King fans out there. The final book that I read in May starts. Raymond Brine doesn't want to think about the coming baby. and this is from Astra by Canadian author Cedar Bowers. This is a debut novel that was longlisted for the Giller Prize, I believe it was last year. It is a very character-driven novel which focuses on the character of Astra, beginning as a young girl, and basically every chapter is a snapshot of her life told from the perspective of other people. So it begins with a childhood friend, and it starts off really strong. So I was thinking that, we would eventually come back to that childhood friend, but that is not how this book is structured, which took me some time to get used to. We learn about Astra's parents, her relationships, her marriage, her children, and her life as she ages. And it's really more of a character study of a woman and how others react in their relationships with her and how she learns who she is. So this is definitely for someone who likes character-driven novels, likes intense relationships, and enjoys checking out debut novels. So those are all of the books that I read for the BookTube Prize and all the books I read in May. Please let me know if you have read any of these, or if you would like to read any of these, if any of them interest you, or maybe tell me what book you enjoyed reading the most in May. As always, I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. Thanks again for watching, enjoy the rest of your day, and don't forget to make every day an adventure.